have a very long list for you of things that I watched, in May and June. Even though we're halfway through July, but I'll do one for July at the end of the month. I swear I will do it. But I have a very long list, so I'm just gonna get started. I'm gonna start with movies that I've watched in the past 2 months. So the first one I wanna talk about is The Night is Short, Walk On Girl. Where do I even begin? This movie was so wild, absolutely wild. I think it is my favorite movie that I watched in this entire list. It's one of my favorite movies that I've seen all year. It came out in 2017, so it's not really new, but I had never seen it before. So it's new for me. But this is a Japanese film. It's actually based on a book of the same name that I definitely want to read after watching this movie. But it's sort of a rom-com, more or less. It's about this girl who embarks on a crazy journey. The whole movie only takes place over the course of one very long night. Even though the movie's called The Night is Short, it's very long. And it's basically just a very long night of partying, and she meets a whole bunch of eccentric and interesting people. And there's also this guy character who's really interested in her and sort of on a quest to find her and make some kind of romance happen between them. So there's like 2 stories happening at the same time. There's this guy who's trying to follow her throughout the course of this crazy night, and then there's this girl who's just like having a wild ass adventure. But the animation style is so interesting, it's so beautiful, it's extremely unique and unlike anything I've ever seen before. The plot is like so on the cusp of not making sense, but it does make sense, and you somehow manage to follow it throughout the entire thing, but it is crazy. It's so whimsical and weird in the best way, completely unpredictable. It's so much fun. If you just like want to have a super fun time watching a movie that will blow your mind, watch this film. It's so good. It's so good. Also, the last 10 minutes is like so trippy, but honestly, some of the best animation I've seen in my entire life. So good, so good. Okay, the next movie that I watched is Plan B. This is a new movie that just came out this year, and it is about 2 young girls who are best friends. They're students in high school, and one of them has a regrettable sexual encounter, and basically the condom falls off inside of her, and she gets really worried that she's gonna get pregnant. So her and her best friend decide to embark on this journey to find the Plan B pill, but they have a really hard time getting it. It's very much a commentary on like sexual health and how accessible these things are, and how it's actually really hard to get the Plan B pill if you are a certain age or in a certain area. But it's also hilarious and so much fun. This is another movie that takes place over the course of one night. It's like a 24-hour long event. It sort of reminded me of Superbad, except instead of looking for alcohol to bring to a party, they're looking for the Plan B pill, but kind of the same vibe and energy. I will say when it started, I didn't really like it. It took me a while to get into it. I felt like it was trying a little bit too hard to be like woke, you know? And so there were definitely things about it that I was like, I don't know about this. But as it went on, I started to like it more. And by the end, I thought it was a really fun movie. I think it had a great message. I think it was really fun and really funny. I think the cast was really diverse, which I loved. It was great. And they were so good. Like all in all, it was a fun time, and I definitely recommend it. The next movie I watched was The Mitchells vs. the Machines. This is a new Netflix animated film that recently came out, and I loved it. It's basically a family road trip movie, except there is a robot apocalypse happening on top of it. It obviously says a lot about technology and social media and the world that we are moving towards with AI and like Siri and all of that stuff, and how that impacts your family and the family dynamic when everyone is obsessed with technology and social media, and how it disconnects people and families. So that's sort of like the point. But it's so wholesome, it's so fun, it's really funny. There is one scene that had me dying of laughter, and it was so surprisingly good. Like, I didn't really hear that much about this movie. I just saw it on Netflix and I was like, that looks fun. It's so wholesome, and it just like makes your heart warm, but it's just so fun. It's just such a fun time. Next on my list, I was in a sort of wholesome kind of mood, so I watched Mamma Mia. This is actually the first time I've ever seen Mamma Mia. I've never seen it before. I didn't really know anything about it other than it was based on ABBA songs, and it stars Meryl Streep. And I was just like, you know what? I should probably watch this movie. And I'm sorry if this offends anyone, but I did not really like this movie. It's just not for me. I feel like it was just so ridiculous. And maybe that's the point. Maybe it's supposed to be over the top and like completely unrealistic, but I just could not wrap my head around any of it. Like nothing made any sense to me. Like the fact that this would never happen in real life. I don't know. I also didn't really find it very funny. Like all of the funny parts weren't really that funny. All of the characters, just something was a little bit off about everyone, and I didn't really care about anyone. Anyway, Mamma Mia is about, if you don't know, this young girl played by Amanda Seyfried who is getting married in Greece. Her mother is played by Meryl Streep, and she does not know who her father is, but she wants her father to be at her wedding. So she invites 3 men from her mother's past to her wedding, hoping that one of them is her dad. And so it becomes this like weird, quirky vacation for these 3 dudes who all show up and like somehow befriend each other. Laszlo, can you please go away? I'm trying to talk about Mamma Mia. It's just so weird how they all like become friends. You'd think they'd all like have beef with each other or be like fighting for Meryl Streep, but instead they're all just kind of like, yeah, whatever. This chick might be my daughter, I don't know. And then there's a lot of like miscommunication where like no one talks to each other, so like all of the problems could easily be solved by like a very simple conversation. Like, first of all, why didn't she just ask her mom, like, hey, who's my dad? You know? It just doesn't make any sense to me. And then she doesn't tell these men that she's inviting them because she thinks they might be her father. So like, why are they there and not asking questions? How do none of them realize that this girl could be their daughter? Like, it doesn't really click with any of them until much later. I don't know, man. It just didn't make any sense to me, and it's really quirky, but in a bad kind of way. It was just not for me. But I know a lot of people love it, so if you love this movie, that's great, and I'm happy for you, but I did not like it. But it did put me in a very Meryl Streep kind of mood, because the next movie that I watched was The Devil Wears Prada. I love The Devil Wears Prada. I have not seen it though in a super long time. Like, honestly, I don't think I've seen it since it came out actually. So I'm very pleased that it holds up because it was just as good as the first time I saw it, if not better somehow. This is such an underrated movie. Can I help you? All day you've been ignoring me, just like hanging out over there by yourself. And now that I'm making this video, you just want to be all up in my business. Okay, so where was I? Oh my God. But yes, I think this movie is so underrated. It's one of Meryl Streep's best performances. She is a force in this film. If you don't know what The Devil Wears Prada is, it stars Anne Hathaway, and she plays this young woman who is an intern, I believe, at this fashion magazine where Meryl Streep is like the chief head editor, and it's like this huge magazine, very, very well renowned, but she doesn't really fit into the fashion industry. She's more of a journalist. She doesn't really have a very good sense of fashion at all. She's kind of a nerd. So Meryl Streep just like completely tears her apart. She's super wicked and very like, oh, I am above everyone, you are beneath me. You know, she's like a bitch. So like the whole movie is Anne Hathaway struggling to maintain this internship and not mess up and not get fired and impress her boss and like trying to fit in with the fashion industry. Also Emily Blunt is in it, and she was the intern and then she got promoted, so now Anne Hathaway is coming in as the intern. But she's like such a bitch in the best way. I think this is one of my favorite performances from Emily Blunt. She's so good in this movie, so funny. I love everything about her. But yeah, I just really love this movie. I think it's like really funny, super entertaining and wholesome, but it also like has a great message about like embracing who you are and being confident in yourself. And I don't know, it's just like empowering and fun, and it's so good. I love it. I forgot how good it was, and I was reminded that it's amazing. So that's that. I feel like this is taking forever, so I'm gonna try and like plow through the next few movies as quickly as possible. So the next movie on my list is Weird Science. I love Weird Science. Weird Science is a John Hughes movie from the 80s, and it is about these 2 young teenage boys who decide to create their ideal woman with science. So it's sort of like a weird teenage coming of age twisted version of Frankenstein, except instead of creating a monster, they're creating a smoking hot babe. And she's like a supermodel, like very clearly way older than them, British, beautiful, amazing, powerful, like what a girl boss. And they're just like these nerdy, scrawny high school boys. But they create this woman to basically be like their girlfriend, like they kind of share her. Objectively, it is a very misogynistic, yeah, this is an 80s movie kind of movie. Like, it could not be made today. There is absolutely no way that it could be made today. And, you know, it's misogynistic. It definitely is. But I still love it. And I think what makes it not completely misogynistic is the fact that Lisa, the woman that they create, isn't really playing by their rules. Like, they kind of set it up to be like, oh, she's like our sex slave. Like, she's ours. But she does not let them like own her. She's her own person, and she's so strong and powerful, and she pretty much bosses them around the entire movie. She like helps them be better people. She tries to set them up with these girls. She like stands up to one of their parents and shows that like, hey, stick up for yourself. Like, you should be more confident. And it's like she has a really good message to send, and like she's really inspiring as a character. So she's never taken advantage of, even though they like created her for a certain reason. So in that way, I don't really think it's that bad. I think it could definitely be seen as, you know, problematic, but I think it's really funny. It has its problems just like any other John Hughes movie, but overall it's super fun and it's definitely a classic. Next on my list is Bo Burnham's Inside, which is Bo Burnham's latest Netflix comedy special. Although I say comedy special very lightly because it is so much more than that. This is like less of a comedy special and more of like a really beautiful, powerful one-man show. If you don't know anything about this, Bo Burnham, who's a comedian, wrote and shot and produced this entire thing by himself in his home in one room over the course of the pandemic. I think it took him like an entire year to put it together. It is so impressive, first of all, that he did all of that by himself. But on top of that, it is one of the most powerful and unique pieces of art I have ever seen. I've never seen anything like it. Never. I don't even really know how to explain it to you. I just think you need to watch it if you haven't, because it's beautiful. And it is very funny. Like, it's a comedy special, so it is very funny. I think it starts off pretty lighthearted, like any of his specials. Like, if you've seen his previous specials, they all sort of follow this formula where like they start off really lighthearted and funny, and then they sort of become much deeper by the end. This one is a lot. It's a lot. The beginning had me laughing a lot, and the end had me crying. It just like, he has such an eloquent way of describing things and talking about the way that certain things feel, especially through song, because he is a musical artist, so a lot of his comedy is through music. And one thing that I really appreciate about this and about Bo Burnham in general is he does his comedy through music, but it's also like really good music. Like, he's extremely musically talented. It's not just like he's writing funny songs and they're just like, yeah, whatever. They're like really good songs. Like, I've been listening to the soundtrack like on repeat because it slaps. It fucking slaps. But yeah, if you want to have a good laugh and also an existential crisis, watch Bo Burnham's Inside. Next three are horror movies. I'm just going to talk about them bang, 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 because I am talking for way too long. But I watched The Conjuring, You're Next, and A Quiet Place 1 and 2. So The Conjuring, I only watched the first one. I haven't seen the newest one because I've actually never seen The Conjuring before. So I was like, hey, I should probably watch this movie that everyone loves. And honestly, it was good. It was fine. It didn't really blow me away. The story was interesting, but it really wasn't very scary. I was expecting it to be a lot scarier. I feel like maybe my expectations were too high. Like, it was overhyped so much. And then it was just like a very average movie. So I don't know. It was fine. If you like horror movies, you'd probably like it, but it wasn't really anything crazy. I also watched You're Next, which is a 2011 horror film, and I'd never seen it before. I just kind of watched it randomly, and it was so much fun. I loved this movie. I don't know why I never saw it before, but it kind of reminded me of Ready or Not, like sort of similar vibes, where there's like a family, and they're all stuck in a house together, and then they're all being like picked off one by one. But the movie's about this extremely wealthy family that is also very estranged, and the parents decide to bring their entire family together in an attempt to mend their relationship for their wedding anniversary. So they invite all of their kids and their kids' significant others to come and stay with them for a weekend. But these creepy mask-wearing assassin dudes start killing people in this family and picking them off one by one, and they all have to work together to survive and not get murdered. And it's kind of like a gory slasher movie that's also kind of funny, and there's like really interesting plot twists. It's just like, I don't know, I was really surprised by how much fun I had watching this movie. It's not like the best movie I've ever seen, but it was surprising and gory and not scary, but like there were some jump scare moments, I guess you could say. And overall, just very, very fun to watch. And then the last one I mentioned was A Quiet Place. I watched A Quiet Place 2, and I also watched the first A Quiet Place right before, just to like get a refresher. Just as good as ever. Honestly, I feel like the first one just gets better every time I watch it. It's so good. And I also really love the second one. I have a whole review of it on my channel, so I will not go into detail, but it was great. Okay, moving on to TV shows, finally. I have 5 TV shows to talk about, but the first one, I think I'm gonna actually wait until next month because that is Loki, and I have not watched the finale yet, so I think I'm just gonna wait until I watch the finale, and then I'll talk about it. But I am loving it. I love Loki. It is so good. Oh my God. But yeah, I'll talk about it more later. I don't want to take any more time out of this video because it's already really long. The next show I want to talk about is Temptation Island. So I am not a person who likes reality TV. I think it is garbage television. It's the absolute worst. It's trash. I hate drama. It's just not for me. I do not like it. But for some reason, I found this show called Temptation Island. It's a reality show that existed in 2001. I think it was 3 seasons. And then they brought it back a few years ago for another run. So I was watching the newer version because I think the older one is like not as risque. You know what I mean? But the premise, they bring a bunch of couples to this island and then they split them all up. So they take all the girls and put them on one side, and they take all the guys and put them on another side, and then they bring in a bunch of really hot singles. So they put all the hot single men with the girls and all the hot single women with the guys, and then it's like a test, like, can you remain faithful to your partner who's also on this island and not be tempted by all of the hot singles that they're trying to flirt with you? It's ridiculous. Like, I don't know why any couple would willingly go to this. A lot of them go in thinking like, oh, this will be a great, like, it'll strengthen our relationship. It'll make us better. We'll just be able to resist because we love each other. But like, none of them do, of course. They all mess it up, and it's so dramatic, and it's absolutely ridiculous. Oh, and every night they play videos to the group of what the other group is doing. So they're literally like watching their significant other cheat on them. It's absolutely wild. It's crazy. But it's like, it's so bad that it's so good. You know what I mean? It's so entertaining and it is so funny. It is ridiculous on every level. So yeah, that's Temptation Island. Next on my list is You're the Worst. Oh my gosh, I cannot believe it took me this long to watch this show because it has become one of my favorite shows of all time, like top 5. So You're the Worst, it is an FX show, I believe, but I watched it on Hulu. I binged this show in like a week, maybe less, a few days, because I could not stop watching. I was so obsessed. I was hooked. It's so good. It's a sitcom, more or less. It's like a dramedy. And it's about these 2 people who are just horrible, horrible human beings, so awful, and have been really unsuccessful with love and like finding a relationship because neither of them ever really wanted one or like vibed with anyone. They kind of hate everyone. They're both very cynical, angry people. And so they're perfect for each other. And they meet, and the entire show is pretty much about their relationship with each other, but also how they're navigating life with this mindset. And one of them is also struggling with depression, and it's one of the best representations of mental illness that I've seen in a really long time. We also have a character with PTSD, and it's just done really, really well. I think it handles a lot of very common problems in such a unique and interesting way, and also a really funny way. Honestly, this show was just a masterpiece. It completely blew me away. I think it's perfect in every way. I wouldn't change a single thing about it. It has a great finale, which is very rare in a show like this. And I honestly would recommend this show to everybody. It is so good. Next on my list is Legion. I mentioned this in my last roundup, I think, and at the time I had only watched the first episode, but now I've watched the entire first season, so I can talk about it a little bit more. Oh my god, this show is amazing. What? This has also become one of my favorite shows, like probably also in my top 5. What is happening? This month has been such a good month for watching things. Oh my god, it's so good. I still have to watch the rest of it, but the first season, truly, I do not know how to explain this show to you. If you haven't seen it, it is a work of art. It's just beautiful. It's so interesting. I can't stop watching. I'm gonna like try to explain it to you, but I'm gonna do a bad job. Basically, it's about this guy who has been diagnosed with schizophrenia, and we see a lot of things through his perspective, which is why it's so interesting, because it's really wonky and kind of trippy, and there's a lot of weird sequences that don't make any sense, a lot of like dream sequences, a lot of, is he crazy? Is everyone else crazy? Like, it kind of messes with your mind the entire time, which is so interesting. But on top of that, he has like superpowers, telekinetic powers, but he can't really control them. So he's like accidentally killing people, and like it's like he's losing his mind, and along with it, his powers are going crazy, or at least that's what it appears to be. And he's hearing voices, and he always thought they were just like in his head, but now he's starting to think that maybe they're real and they're like coming from something else. And basically he gets like recruited by this group of people who all kind of have weird powers, and they're all trying to figure it out together. I don't really want to say anything more than that, but it is so unbelievably interesting and so well written and just amazing. The performances by everyone are like amazing. It's amazing. Watch Legion. I love it. I can't wait to watch the rest of it. Okay, the last thing on my list. We've made it to the end. We've done it. But I feel like I've saved the best for last because I'm so obsessed with this show. And that is Summer Camp Island. Summer Camp Island is an animated series. It started on Cartoon Network. I think now it's on HBO. I believe it started in 2018, and it is still running, and it is everything to me. It is so good. The premise of the show is there's this young kid named Oscar who goes away to summer camp with his best friend, and it's called Summer Camp Island. And they get there and they realize that the island is magical, and all the camp counselors are witches, and all of the inanimate objects come to life, and there's like monsters and magical creatures and all sorts of weird things that happen, and it's just like this crazy magical island of adventures. So every single episode they go on a different adventure, and it's a great setup because they can do pretty much anything they want with this show, and it's like, it makes sense because they're on this weird magical island. So it's sort of like Adventure Time meets Gravity Falls, but it's really, really wholesome and feel good. Like, this show is like a warm hug, and it's so funny. Like, it's quirky and it's whimsical and it's sort of like kiddish because it's a cartoon, but it's so funny. Like, I laughed so hard watching this show because it's very cutesy and cartoony, but there are some like really dark jokes and relatable humor. I don't really know how to explain it, but it's so perfectly well written. It's so witty and clever and hilarious, but it's also really wholesome and has a great message in like every episode. If you want something that's like heartwarming and wholesome and funny and cute, definitely watch Summer Camp Island because it is all of those things and I love it. Whew, okay, but that is everything that I have watched in the past 2 months. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments below what you have been watching. I'm always open for recommendations. I'm always looking for something new to watch. But that's all for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.